Hello, welcome back. I'm going to show you guys how I work with cardboard. I'm a little congested tonight, so forgive that. But I'm going to make a crawler course this way, as well as show my daughter how I work with cardboard when I build the school costumes and whatnot. But you can shape anything out of cardboard if you just know a few basic things about it. Um, Tools I use are scissors with thick handles because they're hard to cut. Get yourself some tan masking tape, not the blue stuff. This sticks better, it's more permanent, and a hot glue gun. But one of the basic, easiest ways is to just layer up a shape, and it's kind of like 3D printing something. You build it up in layers, but it takes a long time cutting all the shapes out. But you'd have to start off with the footprint at the bottom piece, draw it on a piece of paper. That's the shape you need. Cut that out, put it on a piece of cardboard, cut that out. You have your bottom layer, and then you just build up from there. Um, One of the things that is interesting about cardboard is it's very strong because it's 2 layers thick with kind of a lattice work in the middle. This pattern you see here runs the entire length. It runs in parallel lines, and that's what gives cardboard that shape that you can see the lines on the back side. So if you wanted to bend this, you can bend it along the lines. And when I work with cardboard, I'm going to join 2 edges. I use these little things here, but more on that later. First thing I'll do if I'm going to work with cardboard and I want to make a shape, I'm just going to make a raised cylinder. And what this will end up sort of being is kind of a dome structure that sits on a platform. And if I was to just bend this around, there would be all these creases in it that you see. It wouldn't be very pretty. So the best thing to do is to take this cardboard and flatten it. I use the heel of my foot and crush it down, and that way it breaks down that structure between the layers. It can now be curved, okay? And I'll show you another way to curve this, but you got to break down that structure between the layers. Your foot's good, you can do it by hand too, but you see how I crushed it as compared to the non-crushed, and I'll show you how I make a steady curve. First thing I did was I took my shoes off and used the heel of my foot to just crush the whole thing down so that I got rid of that structure in between the top and bottom layer, and now you have something that can be curved. So take it to a curved surface and you just work it around that curve, and it'll start to get that memory of being curved, and you can work individual layers of it. And then if you want to, you can take it to a tighter curve. I'm going to use this sink over here. Alright, now this is a lot tighter radius than the other side, and this will further break down the layers. And see how it's already developing a natural curve without creases. I'll show you what it looks like when you crease cardboard against the built-in lines that exist in it already. But this will make a nice curve now. When you pull it over, push on it to compress it, and it'll make a nice bend this way. This here is how cardboard looks when you don't crush the grain and you try to fold it diagonal to the natural vertical lines in it. Doesn't look very good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this up on a pedestal, and the easiest way to do this is to have a bunch of these already pre-cut. It's just little pieces that I've cut out and folded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some hot glue on that, and I'll start with the first one here. So I'm going to put it right on the edge. Why not? Make sure the edges line up. I'll let that dry for a second. Alright, so this tab gives an attachment point that's a kind of a 90, and what that will allow me to do is to hook the first layer up to the next surface. See how I did that? You have to be a little patient here and just let it dry or harden up as it cools. And now I could wrap this around. If I wanted to, I could take some of my pre-cut tape strips, which I don't know where they are. Stand by. Alright, here's a tape strip. I'm just going to make this come around the curve a little bit. And just to hold it in place, I'll put a piece of tape there. That will allow me to keep coming around with it. And I've got a little bit of a ridge right here that's sticking up. I want to close that little gap, so I'll put a piece of tape right on that. And bring it over. Alright, I'm going to do a couple more pieces of tape, then we're going to flip it over and I'll show you what I do on the bottom side. Here I've taped a few pieces here, and I didn't quite make it long enough to go all the way around. Bad planning on my part, but it doesn't matter. In here you can see the piece that I originally laid in there to secure it, and now what I'm just going to do is put glue on both sides and shove it in there and secure it. And I'll just do this all the way around. It'll make it very strong. Won't go anywhere. If you don't do it you don't have to touch each other. The more you put in there, the more solid it will get. But you're doing more work by cutting more pieces. It's up to you how solid you want it to be. I'll tack down the other end, and I'll just cut a few more pieces to stick in there. So I just put the L-shaped pieces in there just to give it the strength, so that it has a side that is as strong as the top. I'll cut a few more of those. Alright, I'm going around this and I'm not being real careful with it. You'll notice there's gaps in between these two things here. That's not really a problem unless you're doing some finish type work, and suppose you want to do something that is on the outside more. You might want to cut your piece at an angle like that, and I'll show you what that'll do when you put it in. Also, the hot glue coming out of a hot glue gun is hot. I do get burned doing this, but doesn't hurt that bad. It will burn your skin. If you don't want to get your skin burned, well, might do something else. It's not that bad. You're not going to die, but it does not exactly feel good. But I've tapered both of these pieces here, so when I put them together, they go together seamlessly. See, there's no gap in the middle. This white is actually tape that's coming up the side here. I'll try to zoom that in for you. But that's a tape piece. That's not an edge. That's this white tape that is showing you that you can seal a gap just by cutting the two edges. Not the best work, but you get my point. What you can see here is I've gone all the way around the inside. That's not going anywhere. It's strong, and if I wanted to, I could cut a piece and put that in. In fact, I'm going to do that just to show you. Here's an easy way to know how to fill a gap. You put your piece of paper there, and you just hold it and make a line where you want it to go to. Right there. And it needs to go from there across to there. So I'll cut this out. You're going to find out that I didn't measure this all that great. So I'm just going to crush this by hand rather than taking it over an edge. It's a small piece, it can be done. Alright, so there it is right there. Now I could tape this if I wanted to, but I don't really need to. And here's how I'm going to patch it. Take another piece, kind of crunched it up so it has a little mild curve to it. I'm going to hot glue this. Hold this up in there. I'm just going to put it on the back seam there. Make a patch. If you want to add more hot glue to it, you can. Not a big deal. Actually, I added a lot, but it won't hurt anything unless you touch it. So it's not that bad. Alright. Do one more patch like that. Hot. Alright, just basically stuck that on the back side. Let that dry. When you come around to the front, you'll notice you got some seams. If you want those to disappear, you can. All you gotta do is get your tape out and cover them up. I think I can do it with one piece. Now, if you were going to paint this structure, I could even just fold that in. If I was going to paint this structure, I would take pieces of tape that are smaller and thinner, because now we're going to go around a surface, and I would overlap them, and by doing this, you get rid of the gap between the two. So I've got this crease here. It's pretty noticeable in there, but if you were to cover it with a piece of tape, you get rid of it. And if you paint it, or you cover it with another material, that whole seam goes away. And by using small, thin layers, it doesn't get any unnecessary wrinkles in your finished product. I'm not going to go all the way around this, because the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to turn this into a dome. Alright. We'll do another couple pieces here to show the seam is gone. I'll show you what happens when you get too wide of a piece. put it up here, and when you fold it over, it's going to want to fold somehow that's not exactly flat. You'll end up with a crease in it. But anyway, that's how to go around this thing. So we created a bowl from a square, just a flat piece of cardboard. And I'll show you the dome next. This is how to put a dome structure on it. I got a piece of cardboard here that I've broken the structure in it down already by just pinching it and dragging it over a tight corner. And what we're going to do is we're just going to put the dome right over the top, and we'll figure out what that best looks like. And one good way to do it might just be to just do a half circle on a piece of paper and then cut it out. That'll give you the shape we need. So I'll do that right here. Just going to trace it out. And we only need half of that. Roughly, maybe go like this. I'll get it. There we go. I like that one. I'll cut this out and show you what we're going to do with it next. Okay, in order to make a dome out of cardboard, it's not that hard, but we do want some structure. So I'm basically going to stick this right on there. Notice that it is slightly narrower than the diameter of the piece we're working on, and that's because we're going to put a piece of cardboard over the top of this, and I want the sides to still be flush. So it's about one layer thick less on each side. So in order to get this to stand up, we're going to do the same thing we did before and glue some pieces on to that. Ouch. God, that's hot. That was hot. And stick that on there. Sorry guys. If that's hot. And I'm going to stand up here so I can put it right down the center. Pretty good. I'll put another one on this side. If your hot glue looks a little milky and you have the clear sticks, that means it's really hot. And it will hurt more if you touch it. It doesn't actually burn your skin off, at least mine, but it doesn't feel good either. Alright, so we now have a shark blade that goes through the middle, and that's a guide for our over the top piece, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do in order to deal with that. Alright, so on my strip that I've cut that's going over the top, I've made a fork in it like that. And what that's going to allow it to do is go over the blade just fine on the edge. So I'll hot glue these tabs. And we'll stick it down. Alright, so once that's over the top, I can mark where I want the termination point to be. Right there. So I'll cut it a little bit farther down. Sorry once again for my congestion. Yeah, how about that? And this time I'm going to put the hot glue on the surface rather than the tabs themselves. because it might be easier. I'll let that firm up a little bit. Sorry about my camera work here. Then if you really want to get special with it, you can just run a line right through there. That once it's dry, that's going to hold it real good. This piece is a little bit trickier, but we are going to need to be able to anchor the completing panels onto this. So I've pie cut this whole piece here, and what I'm going to do is run a glue bead right along the edge of this. And then I'm going to stick it up in the top. Just like that. So now I have something that can curve inward, and it has a radius that will diminish as it bends, and that's something I can anchor my completing pieces to it. Now it's just a matter of finishing it out, and what I'm going to do, I think, is build the one that's at the 90 point, and then 2 or 3 more panels and fill it in, and then 2 or 3 panels on that side and fill it in. I got hot glue all over my hands, but it's okay. I'll just show you that real quick. And for this piece, I'm just going to run my hand down and press that against the side, drag it along the edge of the table, and that'll break it down and make it curve at the same time. So that'll work. With that a little bit longer, what I've done is I've figured out what I want that arc to look like. Something like that. I marked it. I left a little extra here so that when I go to hot glue it, I can fold this under and it has a clean, clean attachment point right there. Now the rest of it is just filling in a couple of gaps. I'll show you how to do that. Here's the other alternative to making that sawtooth piece. You can cut a bunch of strips, and we're just giving the next layer some anchor points. Make sure they're crushed and foldable so that they can make a dome shape when it's all done. Now, when it comes to the center spine, I'm going to want something that can come out to the sides a little bit. So how I'm going to do that is cut it a little bit wider than the piece that I have previously attached. So I'll put this through the middle, hot glue in the center part, I'll stick it right in there. See how we're just building that shape around? I'm giving it things to hang on to as it comes around. So I have a top layer and a bottom layer. And just for the interest of time, I think I'm just going to make this all out of, it'll have to be 2 pieces. I'll do that real quick. You can only get so much of a curve from a straight flat surface of a piece of cardboard. I'm going to change up the attachment point on the bottom here for a second. I'm going to use one of these angled pieces that we cut, and I want the cardboard on this side to come down flush with the edge when it's completed. We have a straight wall. Let me zoom in on that for you. But it's a little too tight. I don't want to have a seam here. I want to have a straight flush wall, but I want to be able to have some anchor points that aren't necessarily tied underneath, because some of these complex shapes are harder to fix or to shape. So what I'm going to do is this time I've added this piece to the bottom, and I didn't take it right to the edge. I've got a little bit of a step there for the next layer to sit on, and that should seal it up pretty nice. Alright, so I've added the under layer attachment points, and now I just have to skin this quadrant, and we'll be 1/4 done with the dome. I think I'm going to leave the other side undone so we can come back to it and look at it again. Another thing we can do to make this a little bit stronger is just run a glue bead right along that seam. See that? And by doing that, it's going to lock that in tight. That is not going anywhere again. Every layer you add, sorry about the camera work here, I'm bumping it. Every layer you add makes it that much stronger. And this will end up being, if I were to complete the whole thing, a really stiff dome that's probably going to take a lot more to crush than the original box. So let me finish up this quarter, and there's different ways you can piece this in, but I'm just going to freehand it, sort of hope for the best. Okay, you see here I've cut this shape, and it's going to go right in there to seal that up. And I took it to a point so that I can take the next panel to a point as well. But before I secure this in, I'm going to put a tab on this side here just to give it something that I can glue the next piece to. So I'm going to put this here and figure out where the glue can go. And I'm just going to mark it right there. Diagonal line, because I don't want to put glue anywhere else yet. But now I'm going to glue the rest of these tabs. I shove this part in there. It will seal it up pretty nice. One more pie slice, and this thing is pretty much done. I am going to put a bracing piece in there just to give the next piece something that it can lock onto from the preceding piece. Smooth out the surfaces later. But this last piece needs to be the exact shape, and these bracing pieces cannot interfere with each other. So if they touch each other, when it's held in the final shape you want it to be, you gotta cut it a little bit so they don't. And I think I made this a little too long, but it's okay. I'm just going to shorten that a little bit. I cut that intentionally just to make it a little shorter. And on the back side of it, I'm just going to brace it up. It's got a little bit better radius to it now. It was previously a little long. I don't mind that seam being there because we're going to smooth the surface of the whole thing in a moment. Here's another trick that I sometimes do if I need to get an exact shape for that last piece. I'm just going to put the tape over it and just sort of trace it out. I'm going to draw right on the seam. I'll try to tilt my camera up. I got the light shining in from the back, so I know that it has to go here. It has to go terminate here. And then I'm going to follow it right down this line here. Alright. So I have the general shape. I'm going to stick that onto some cardboard. I'll cut it a little bit wide and then shape it down as I need to. One of the nice things about smaller pieces is you can do some complex curves without getting creases in it. And what I've done is just shape that to fit. So the only thing left to do is glue it and stick it in there until it dries. Right there is how it's going to be. And then I'll show you the finishing on it. So we'll tag it at the top here. I'm going to glue on the sides this time. The whole panel. Alright, it's going to be hot, but we know this. Just brace for it. You're going to be fine. Alright, here you can see I've got a little bit of an open gap there, and that's fine. I'll run a strip of glue down it, and I'll push it together and just smear it off the top. That is going to make a nice seam. Just hold it until it sets up. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to run a bead down along that seam. Wipe off the excess. Just stick it together. This is joining the edges of those panels all together. This has a seam. And it does hurt a little bit to touch the hot glue, but art is pain, right? Maybe not. That's the cardboard dome shape from a bowl. And now I'm just going to smooth the edges with tape, and it'll look as a one continuous piece. Now when you use the tape, use a lot of narrow strips, because narrow can go along curves without wrinkling much. There's enough flexibility in the tape that it won't wrinkle just because it goes over an edge. At least not badly. And I might go a little narrower than that even. That's what it looks like with the gaps all sealed up. I'm just going to hit that with a quick coat of paint and just show you what it will look like when it's done. If you decided to paint it, make sure that all the tape is laying down thick and hard so that it doesn't let paint come up under it. Always got to stick down tape like this. Sometimes it doesn't stick completely. Alright, I'll hit that with some paint, and this will be pretty much a done project. And I'll just do a quick overview at the end. Alright, at the beginning of the video we started with a circle, and then we made a collar that went around it. We secured it with one tab and then wrapped it around and sealed up a gap on the side of it. And then we built an arc to go over the top at half radius. We built some tabs to hang it on the inside. And there is the finished dome. It's still drying, but I just want to finish the video up so I can get it edited and go to bed. But that is building with cardboard the way I did it. Works pretty good for costumes and whatnot. I might put a couple costumes that I built this way at the end of the video just to show you what can be done with this type of construction. That's all for tonight. We'll talk to you later.